As Ra would say, welcome to the channel of tribal spirituality, because the 4037 is not by its nature mystical. He says, please get that. It requires some kind of event, and that event doesn't have to be mystical. It can be a tragedy. It can be all kinds of things. Something that happens in the life that suddenly opens up this possibility for turning one's back on tradition. So here in the 4037, it's 3740, it's the equivalent of our 1156 in that there's the seeking, searching. And here we also too have finding. The finding of the mystical truth on this way to awakening is that it's not about the search for the touch of God, which it initially begins as. What we're doing is not just simply liberation from tradition, but in the search for truth, finding one's own individual nature eventually down the line. Okay, so today we're going to be talking about this channel of tribal spirituality, which is part of the cross of planning, our current background era from 1615 to 2027. And it's one of those absolutely fascinating channels, so deeply connected, not just to the cycle that we're in, this cycle that's coming to an end, but also one of the foundations of what it is to be human, because it is one of the three essential ingredients in our humanness. Ross says that something to remember about these channel definitions that are the direct result of oppositions in the wheel. So a definition, two centers, the opposition in the wheel, polarities across the wheel that are meeting in a channel that are creating what it is for us, archetypally speaking, to be human, because it's the most common definition. So you have this 3420, which is the new era that we're moving into. You have the 3740, which is the old era that's crumbling. All these bargains breaking down. It's not a joke. It's not to be taken lightly. It is quite serious. And yet, it's time to break through. It's time to break free. It's time to have a new individuality. Here's the individuality, the 4323, where those of you who have done this work professionally, you know that these are so common. I mean, most of your charts are going to have some configuration of this, either from Sun, Earth, or nodes, or even more rarely, you might find random planets in there, because just planetary transits will also create these channels. These are the channels where the fundamental humanness, being charismatic and busy in the now, structuring our unique, freaky, individual insights in order to explain what we know, or supporting our tribe, our family, our familiars, our friends, our neighbors. So when it comes to the essential ingredients of what it is to be human, busybody know-it-alls who love to eat. I mean, you could play with all kinds of keynotes. Remember the mouth 40, the mouth 37 and the stomach 40. So one of the interesting things that is so fascinating about spiritual experiences, if you think back to Ra's experience, do you remember how he actually had a fast for a very long time where he was just stared at the sun? If you've heard that story. In many mystical experiences, people particularly tend to go on long fasts to clear out the body. And so this is one of the things on that path in the mystical journey, the fast from the food, from bonding in tribe over food, because that's the end of the tribal relational dynamic. Something happens, you turn your back, and you move into individuality rather than going into money, as we have seen. We'll revisit that theme again. It's very important that in this channel of tribal spirituality that we see, it does have its own uniqueness, its own way, That is, this is the only connection that the ego has to the emotional system. It really takes someone's affection, 37, loyalty, 37, or massaging the ego of the 40 in order to get that 40 to love providing for them. 40s work for the love, the affection, the contribution of the other if it's separate. And we're going to talk about a couple of different things here when it comes to the dynamic of whether you have it in a full channel or whether you just have gates on either side. So the way that Ra looks at this is the glorious and the profane when it comes to this tribal spirituality. That is the 37 being the glorious and the 40 being the profane. So this is an underlying need that the search is resolved for finding God. Remember, channel of curiosity, design of a seeker searcher is looking, 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 looking. Is it finding? Not necessarily. Not really. It finds a belief. It stimulates others with its story. But what's true down here in the bridge, this channel of tribal spirituality, it's not in and of itself mystical. Again, this is the tribal equivalent of the channel of curiosity. That is, both are very much about seeking. And this one, the bridge, is very much about finding. Remember, tribe is tactile, it's touch. We find our bonding, our communion over food with our tribe. So because there's a tribal need for the search itself in one way or another to find God. How are we going to find God? Well, we can make the sacrifice and we can imbibe the spirit of God through communion. Isn't that interesting how there are very many religions out there who use sacrifice, take this as, my blood or my bones or whatever it happens to be, that there are these themes of sacrificing that's carried through this stream. The 37th gate of family, brings fear of tradition, having to hold traditional roles. This is the path of worship and the hope of being touched by God. So the deepest theme of the searching, the seeking, wanting the touch of God, in the real power of religions, it's about bonding human beings together through ritual. So you have all of these different ways that we ritualize our mechanism for bonding through food, whether it be the Holy Sacrament on Sundays or, being a whirling dervish or hula dancing, whatever it happens to be. There's this very powerful force as we enter into the quantum of this particular group dynamic, whatever it happens to be as far as its tribal nature, this tribe versus that tribe's, we do this, we don't eat that, whatever it happens to be. So maybe sweat lodges, healing tents, all this prayer circles, intensity, excitement, oftentimes centralized around food, where there are certain beings that are in support of the energetic dynamic between the emotional system or getting people jacked up. We know this term from our emotional wave principle, jacked up in order to find the touch of God. But that God touch, usually when people say God touched, they're God touched. It's an inner thing. So because here in the tribe, you're always praying or looking for the touch of God, it's part of the tradition to be able to pray, to be able to worship, to be able to look and to find. Remember how this channel of community, design of a part seeking a whole, can also be labeled the channel of the bargain. The fair and balanced bargain is generally what we say on this side. The other side, the mirror channel 4426, surrender, design of a transmitter, that's driving the hard bargain. But here it's communal tribal support, where the deals are not just made with each other, but they're made with God. So inherently, this is the channel of bargains. Link bargains to this particular channel. The first bargain is, of course, mother, father, children obey their mother, father, and all of that. We're going to go into that through the line qualities, especially. And 40 or 37, either side, they're both going to pray for the bargain. So you find oftentimes in religion that human beings, archetypally, they will make up stories based upon anthropomorphizing and energetic. So let's say praying to Zeus, or Jupiter, looking for the energy to be able to have luck or fortune or more food in the belly or a success in your capability of going through higher education, all of those things relating to Jupiter. So there are going to be different results of the bargain based upon how one might pray in order that they save the day. And whether it be a puja or, making an altar or donating in the name of whatever saint or savior or God, if you will, both sides of this channel are going to try and pray in order to find God. It's just part of the nature of what it is to be human. Interestingly, humans who are ignorant, we make up stories in order to rationalize what we think of as reality. Because the 37 has this deep need for loyalty and it gives affection in return, the need for prayers to be answered, this is the inner silent prayer, a possibility of expression that is filled with a depth of feeling because this is emotional. An emotional gate that is profoundly in the thrall of needing God to answer its prayers. So you got a 37, go pray, go pray, go pray, and you resonate that way? Well, there you have it. That's where it's coming from. Okay. Now, in the other side, we have the 40th gate of deliverance, which is the path of denial and the pain of being alone. The path of denial, which is, no, obviously, that's the other side of this story here. The path of denial, the 40th gate, can be associated, for example, with Zen, neti, neither this nor that, common phrase over there. There is this fundamental denial of the mechanism of what it is to be in community, because this is one of the three gates of aloneness. It denies, it says no, it shuts the other out, it shuts the other down. But at the same time, the 6th or 40th gate, I was thinking of the 6th line and decapitation. The 40th gate has a disadvantage in that it loves work, it loves earning love. So it loves work that is emotionally rewarding, that's going to earn it the support of the 37. It works for that pleasure, which is one of the deals or bargains that it will ensure that it has access to. The heart center, the stomach organ with the 40. Okay, stomach organ as in, the filling your own belly or the belly of your bellies of your family. So if it ever does pray, the 40 will pray for pleasure. That's a very different kind of prayer than the 37 has this deep need for prayer to be answered. Please, God, that inner silent prayer that can be filled with this depth of the ratcheting emotional wave of feeling, where the deals are made with God through prayer, as right here, mystical channel of the tribe. So the deliverance path of denial and the pain of being alone. So sad when you see a 40 who is not living out its true nature and is, let's say, they're generative frustrated, they're projected bitter, they're manifested angry at the pain of being alone, rather than exulting in their aloneness.